And I take great pleasure at this moment to welcome our featured speaker for this evening's event, His Excellency Anthony Thomas Aquinas Carmona, Order of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Senior Counsel, the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. I now ask all of you to please stand as we welcome His Excellency to the podium.
Thank you very much. Could you all have a seat, please? Senator, the Honorable Vasan Bharat, Minister of Trade, Industry, Investment, Mr. Munilal Lalchan, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce, past Presidents of the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Ms. Catherine Kumar, Chief Executive Officer of the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Ms. Diane Harder, Chairman of the Tobago Division of the Chamber, Mr. Raul John, Chairman of the Chamber's Dispute Resolution Center, other members of the Board of the Chamber, specially invited guests, members of Trinidad and Tobago Chamber and the wider business community, members of the media, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen. This particular month is a very special month to me, primarily because, of course, on the 7th of March, that was my birthday. On the 18th of March, I became President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And I feel good company. I feel I'm in good company when I realize that the Chamber was established on March the 14th, 1879. So that in some ways it is not my intention to engage in regurgitation of what I stated at my inauguration address. But I can tell you, however, I still live by the tenets, by what I have stated, and exactly what I said I was going to do, I have done and continue to do. As the Republic's businessmen and women, as captains of industry and commerce, practical aspects of developing and leading a successful business enterprise in Trinidad and Tobago are well within your grasp. You have all had to treat with the specific challenges that attend our world of business. Challenges that may be attributed to our history and to constraints concomitant with our status as a small island developing state, our medium income classification notwithstanding. My focus this evening is less on the material advantages that may accrue to the country because of your entrepreneurial skills, and more on the untold benefits that the country may gain from you in your role as citizens who, by your economic success, are strategically poised to influence the course of our nation in terms of the values which we espoused and the ethical standards to which we commit. World leaders such as Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, Aung San Suu Kyi, the Burmese human rights activists, and more recently Pope Francis, were willing to make hard decisions, go against popular and convenient opinion, and stay true to their vision and deep philosophy of humanity. They all had and have a burning passion to make the world a better place, to put our shared humanity above the differences that separate us, and to argue for justice, decency, and compassion in our interpersonal relationships. Like all celebrated leaders, they analyzed the adverse situation confronting them. They accepted that theirs was not an enabling environment, yet they shared their vision of what might be. They planned how they might, by their own efforts, usher in change. They made a conscious decision to take affirmative action and persevered in translating their vision into reality. They chose, in a word, to be exemplars of ethical leadership in their respective communities. You may argue, of course, that none of these leaders were charged with running a business. They did not have to worry about maximizing shareholder value or gaining a competitive advantage. You would probably remind me quite properly that in your individual and personal capacities, many of you are benefactors and supporters of organizations engaged in humanitarian activities. As CEOs, you are aware of your responsibilities as corporate citizens, and you do seek to integrate social demands into your work plans and to use your business powers in a way that contribute to the common good. We need only recall, to name a few, Helen Bangwansing, Hannah Janora, Arthur Lockjack, Anthony Sagba, and Robert York, all members of the business community who have contributed and continue to do so to the common good. Finally, you would probably advise that the transformation of our society is not the responsibility of the business sector alone. This I do not dispute. However, there is consensus that as a society we have not attained the level of development commensurate with our resources and our opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, economic growth is the engine of development. However, to judge a country's level of development by its GDP is to take a very blinkered view of the development process. Development is about people. The International Non-Communicable Disease NCD Child Conference, held in this very same hotel a few days ago, and focusing on non-communicable diseases and preconditions such as diabetes and obesity afflicting our children, provided daunting statistics in the area of human development. We speak of growth and development in terms of well-known metrics such as GDP and employment rates. But where are growth and development when your nation has one of the highest GDPs in the region, and yet you surpass the country with the lowest GDP, Haiti, in terms of numbers of men per 100,000 who succumb to non-communicable diseases? Between 2008 and 2014, we as a nation have managed to keep our unemployment rate to below 5%. But given our crime statistics, we are in effect challenging basic sociological doctrine that establishes connections among poverty, unemployment, and crime. Development is really about people. Al-Mahbub-ul-Haq, a Pakistani economic philosopher, wrote in a seminal piece on the human development paradigm, and I quote, "The basic purpose of development is to enlarge people's choices. In principle, these choices can be infinite and can change over time. People often value achievements that do not show up at all or not immediately in income or growth figures. These include greater access to knowledge, better nutrition and health services, more secure livelihoods, security against crime and physical violence, satisfying leisure hours, political and cultural freedoms, and a sense of participation in community activities. The objective of development is to create an enabling environment for people to enjoy long, healthy, creative lives." These come from the readings in Human Development, New Delhi in 2003. I therefore ask you to ask yourself the same question I ask of myself every day. How else can I use my office and my competencies to hasten the establishment of a more equitable, just, and caring society? I start from the position that change does not have to come from some tsunamic force. Rather, I believe that any action that encourages us to grow and to engage our human impulses moves us individually and collectively that much closer to our development goals. Malala Yousafzai, by her singular action, forged an environment for great change in the tribal areas of Pakistan. She decided to buck an entire system with far fewer resources in her possession than many, if not all of us here tonight. Her simple actions sparked an awareness that has echoed across the globe, giving credence to the power of one. I believe in the power of one. The power that resides in the spirit of every man and woman to create change, to make change happen, not by happenstance, but by direct, purposeful intervention to make that difference in the life of a nation and every citizen. One of my dreams is of a Trinidad and Tobago where the image we present to the world of a diverse and inclusive society also finds expression in the integration of the differently abled in all aspects of public life. Last Saturday, again in this very hotel, I count myself fortunate to have met David Egan, a Special Olympian, an international self-advocate of the Down syndrome community. David gave the feature address and spoke about the need to encourage employers to hire more people with intellectual disabilities. He stated, and I quote, "One size does not fit all, but there are many jobs that fit both the needs of the employee and the employer. Adding us to the roster is not enough. You need to include us in all aspects of the business." End of quote. Right here in Trinidad and Tobago, we have our differently abled advocates. We have the lovely and talented Chantel Ince, herself a successful Paralympian, who has shown that notwithstanding your lot in life, you can achieve great things. But these are the public faces of the differently abled community. What about the private faces? What about those hidden away because of the embarrassment that they and their families endure at the hands of an insensitive society? It doesn't take much to make a difference, ladies and gentlemen, of the corporate world. I was able to visit the National Center for Persons with Disabilities, the NCPD in San Fernando, where I was shown the skill of the differently abled, demonstrated by excellent craftsmanship which they displayed. We saw people, I emphasize people, competently involved in agriculture, catering, bookbinding, computing, carpentry and joinery, metalwork, music, sewing and cobbler. Notice I said people and not disabled persons. They are people like you and me who happen to be differently abled, not differently abled persons who happen to be people. I challenge corporate Trinidad and Tobago in your trust to be true leaders in the community, to adopt a philosophy and institute a policy of inclusion. For example, Repsol International has a policy of hiring at least 3% of its workforce from the differently abled community. I further challenge you all to collaborate with the authorities here in Port of Spain to ensure that there is wheelchair access at every traffic light around the savannah, because there's only one. Let that be the tsunami act to trigger having wheelchair access at every traffic light throughout Trinidad and Tobago. It is my preoccupation with our human developmental goals that led me a few months ago in early January to bring together 30 experts, the best and the brightest from the University of the West Indies and the University of Trinidad and Tobago, to consider how we might better mitigate the ravages of the oil spills. It was an unprecedented collaborative exercise at no cost to the state, and the team was able to deliver its findings and recommendations in under 2 weeks. I believe that by working together to address an immediate crisis, these local professionals with international experience were also expressing their sense of civic responsibility and confidence in their ability to engineer an effective local solution grounded in international best practices to a major global challenge. It is this quality of response that I consider particularly valuable as we seek to foster the spirit of self-reliance, self-belief, social commitment, and ethical leadership, crucial in our march towards creating a society in which people can indeed live long, healthy, happy, and creative lives. And this brings me to the role of young people in this endeavor. For far too long, ladies and gentlemen, we have been attempting to impose solutions on our young adults without sourcing or seeking their input. I urge you not to discount the youth. Growth and development can only happen when the young grow and develop to keep pace with improvements in infrastructure and technology. There must be succession planning from the view of the wider society. And we fail miserably, ladies and gentlemen, in that area, in that philosophy. That is why my office has insisted on introducing young people of this nation to governance. At the NCD Child Conference, the Office of the President started for the first time a student ambassador initiative geared towards providing opportunities for secondary school students to interface with international experts at international fora in their particular areas of interest. All the international experts at that conference were blown away by that innovation. They were able to engage young people from secondary schools on international issues. Coupled with this, the Office of the President will continue to extend invitations to secondary school students to interact with foreign heads of state and ambassadors and high commissioners during presentation of their letters of credence to the President. This is something we will continue to champion so that we can build capacities, aspirations, and worldviews in our youth so that they can be prepared to take their rightful place in the global village. I have been privileged to observe those invited secondary school students interact with these dignitaries in remarkable fashion. For example, when the President of China paid me a courtesy visit, 2 students from Trinidad and Tobago spoke with the President of China in Mandarin. He was totally impressed by their accents, their intonation, and how fluent they were. One was a 17-year-old girl attending St. Augustine Girls High School, who, on her own initiative, decided to attend classes at UWI in the evening. Students who met with the Cuban and Spanish ambassadors spoke to both of them in Spanish. And I'm pleased to say I was able to join the conversation. Only recently, I had the Egyptian ambassador present his letters of credence, and there were students who engaged him in Arabic. All the ambassadors and all the heads of state, including Vice President Biden and the President of China, they have told me in no uncertain manner that this was an initiative they had seen nowhere else. And it was their intention to take it back to the USA, to China, and the ambassadors also indicated that they would relay what was being done in terms of engaging young people in this country of ours. At the office of the President, we have not forgotten the primary school students. Since my inauguration, I have launched Lunch with the President initiative. It is a monthly exercise providing primary school students from both Trinidad and Tobago with the opportunity to have lunch with me, to share with me their hopes, dreams, aspirations, and ideas, and to help build their sense of connection with governance from an early age. During that particular period that we have lunch, no adult is around, no teacher, no parent. I must also mention that all of these initiatives have included differently abled students. Students from School of the Blind and those who cannot hear. Because for far too long, ladies and gentlemen, we have been engaging in a philosophy of humanity that is a non sequitur. We will bring 200 homeless men who live a daily hell and bring them under one roof to give them lunch. No. In the context of corporate leadership, I ask you, when next you want to you want to help the voiceless, the marginalized, the homeless, have a dinner that includes the man who doesn't have a home, but the man who has. Have dinner with the man who cannot walk, with the man who can. With the man who cannot see, with the man who can see. Because it is through that mechanism, through that human dialogue, that we can come to the fullest terms to our sense of humanity. How many people in leadership roles are comfortable or secure enough in themselves to put their egos aside to allow the opinions of younger minds to influence their decisions? Younger minds do not necessarily equate with less wisdom and intellect. For example, Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook and the world's second youngest self-made billionaire, attended the 37th G8 summit in 2011 in France at the age of 27. Great men do great things and have monuments built to remember them. Great leaders do simple things which are monumental in and of themselves. It is the simple things that define us. Rosa Parks sat on a bus and Gandhi picked up a small lump of salt out of the mud at the beach at Dundee. Both deceptively simple actions, monumental in their effects, and which changed the course of human history. But we don't have to go too far back in history to identify others like them. Every day, people go about their business simply and assist in changing the world. A case in point was Ravindra Ramratan, who lost his life in Kenya on Saturday, the 21st of September, 2013, a victim of terrorism. We all knew him as a President's Medal winner and a scholar at Oxford University and the prestigious London School of Economics. But how many of us know that as part of his normal daily job, Ravi was exploring new ways to leverage technology in order to provide financial services to low-income households in Kenya? This project garnered international interest and was sure to revolutionize the world of microfinance had he not been lost before his time. My advice, therefore, is to choose something simple, but which matters to those affected by its unavailability. Develop this missing link, and growth will come inevitably. For leadership to be empowering, be it in the private or in the public sector, it must be inspired and it must be inspiring, and must be grounded on the altar of integrity. It must embrace the philosophy of humanity. The philosophy of humanity is not an easy one to follow. It requires good character and compassion. Commerce without morality is one of the 7 deadly sins listed by Gandhi and speaks to the need for pure intentions. This is not a call to economic martyrdom. Rather, it is an exhortation to do right because it is what has to be done. We are each called to a higher purpose which will require us to make sacrifices at varying times and of various types. How much of a sacrifice we make depends on what we feel we are willing to endure. Often, we will find, however, that we are in a position to endure more than we thought we were able to, if we give ourselves a chance to get back to ground zero. If you are giving and you don't feel it, then you are probably not giving as much as you could. In an address entitled Regenerating Morals and Values in Our Society, presented at the Sir Ellis Clarke Memorial Conference last October, the economist and attorney at law, Dr. Terence Farrell, listed 5 factors which he suggests promote and encourage the corrupt behaviors and which leaders must guard against. These include, and I quote, remoteness of consequence. 2, equating morality with legality. 3, the you too argument. 4, unresponsibility, a term coined by the great Dr. Lloyd Bess. And 5, real or perceived unfairness. I want to draw your attention to the 4th factor, unresponsibility, which Dr. Farrell defines as the failure to appreciate one's duty in the circumstances in which one finds oneself. He goes on to add, and I quote, "It is more than ignorance or recklessness, because mere ignorance of what is required or mere recklessness leads to irresponsibility. Unresponsibility arises where the person, given their position, should know what is required, but they do not, or if they do know what is required, they do not know how to go about discharging that particular duty. Ladies and gentlemen, some of your members have taken advantage of the provisions of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, establishing the Caribbean Community, including the CARICOM single market and economy, and have established business throughout the length and breadth of the region. The returns on your investment have not only brought corporate or individual fortunes, but have also contributed to Trinidad and Tobago's economic development. But what is the next frontier? Is the leadership of the Chamber exploring the possibilities of a great trust in the Latin American market? What about other possibilities which exist in Africa, Asia, or the untapped Eastern European markets? Has the research been done on the feasibility of these potential markets? If not, what are you waiting on? Risk is nothing new in the world of business, and risk is required if a nation is to be propelled forward. Expand your vision. What about creating an international air travel hub here in Trinidad and Tobago, providing for air travel from the Caribbean, Central and South America to South Africa? Is that too risky a proposition? Will we continue to fly to London for 9 hours and then endure 14-hour flights from there to South Africa? Do the maths. I need to remind you all of something I told some 80 odd ambassadors who attended my yearly ambassadorial dinner about the role of Trinidad and Tobago in the context of the Americas. And I just simply wish to quote something that I said, that I believed in. And it goes like this: Trinidad and Tobago is the crown sitting on the head of the Americas. You prove me right, ladies and gentlemen. In conclusion, I have to thank you for your kind invitation. But I want you to consider this. Is it in your best interest that national growth and development occur? Is it in the country's best interest that national growth and development continue? Is it in the people's best interest that growth and development begin? If your answer was yes to each of these questions, then you have given yourself the mandate to begin. I have intentionally not defined leadership or attempt to so do. Definitions are replete. However, I do have a mantra of leadership that I live by and that continues to endure in my life. And it is a simple one. It goes like this: today, I want to be a better person, not a greater person than I was yesterday. And I will repeat it. Today, I want to be a better person, not a greater person than I was yesterday. Remember, as far as the business of humanity is concerned, the greatest contribution to national growth and development you can make is giving of yourself and your time, because you are not a business executive who happens to be a person. You're a person who happens to be a business executive. Never forget that. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.